Welcome back to my channel Celeb Buzz. Please share and subscribe and press the bell icon for new updates. Barry Gibb is now 78 years old, and he's finally telling Daryl's story about John Lennon. Barry Gibb was born with the full name Barry Allen Crompton Gibb on September 1st, 1946 in Douglas, Isle of Man. Keith grew up in a poor family, and Barry's early life was full of moving around. He moved first to Manchester, England, and later to Redcliffe, Queensland, Australia, where his music dreams would start coming true. When Barry was young, he was really good at writing songs and making up music, often writing songs with his brothers Morris and Robin. He had a special musical connection with them that was almost magical. Barry was the main singer and songwriter of the Bee Gees, and he became famous for making new kinds of pop music, especially during the 1970s disco time. His shy singing voice became what people knew the group for, and he helped write the Bee Gees. Most famous songs like Staying Alive, How Deep Is Your Love, Night Fever, and More Than a Woman. These songs not only were #1 hits, but became the music of a whole generation, catching the beat and feeling of that time like no one else could. Barry's talent for writing songs went beyond his work with the Bee Gees. He wrote and helped make #1 hits for many famous singers like Barbra Streisand, Woman in Love, Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers, Islands in the Stream, and Dionne Warwick, Heartbreaker. He was good at writing different types of music from pop to soul to country, which made people think of him as one of the best songwriters and popular musiciver. Barry's job in the group was very important, not just as a main singer with us. Special vibrato and high voice but also as the main songwriter and music arranger. People knew he was great at songwriting, writing songs that made people feel emotions like To Love Somebody, How Can You Mend a Broken Heart, and Words. All of which showed he could put deep feelings into words and music. His high-pitched voice would later become the main voice of the disco time, pushing the Bee Gees into being famous all over the world during the late 1970s. The Bee Gees' work on the Saturday Night Fever movie music made them famous around the world, selling over 40 million copies and giving them a permanent place in music history. Barry's creative leadership was the main reason for this big success. With over 220 million records sold around the world, the Bee Gees beat you Specamion of the best-selling music artists of all time. But Barry's influence wasn't just counted in how many records he sold. It was also seen in the many artists he inspired and helped teach over many years. He had an amazing ability to write timeless songs, often written in just a few hours and always filled with real emotion and deep words. He was also known for working really hard and wanting everything to be perfect, things that helped keep the Bee Gees popular through many different musical times. Even though became very famous, Barry Gibb's life has been touched by really sad things. Losing his brothers Andy in 1988, Morris in 2003, and Robin in 2012 left Barry as the only living Gibbro. Their deaths really hurt them, and he has talked openly about how sad he is that he lived longer than the brothers made so much magic with. But instead of stopping making music, Barry has kept performing and recording music, carrying on the Bee Gees legacy with total dedication. His 2016 solo album, In the Now, showed a more thoughtful side of his music, showing the emotional weight he carries as both a survivor and a storyteller. In interviews, he often thinks about the happiness and sadness of his journey, talking about the special bond shared with his brothers while continuing to honor them through his music. Because of all his great work in music, Barry Gibb has gotten many awards and honors. He was made a Commander of the Order of the British Empire, CBE, in 2002, and was knighted in 2018 by Prince Charles for his work in music and charity, officially becoming Sir Barry Gibb. He is also in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame 2 times, once as a member of the Bee Gees and again as a songwriter. These honors, while really special, only begin to show how much Barry has affected culture. His work continues to be celebrated by new generations, with many artists sampling, covering, or getting inspiration from his songs. Barry Gibb's personal life. It's been marked by both romantic big moments and lasting family love. His first marriage was to Maureen Bates, a woman he met during the early years of his growing music career. The couple got married on August 22, 1966, when Barry was only 19 years old, an age when was still learning how to deal with fame as a member of the Bee Gees alongside his brothers Robin and Morris. Their marriage happened during a time of big changes in his life, just before the Bee Gees would become famous around the world. Even though the marriage started with hopeful feelings, the stress of a quickly growing music career and personnel problems made the couple break up. They lived together only for a short time before deciding to separate. And the marriage was officially ended in July 1970 after almost 4 years. Even though the relationship didn't last long, it was an important part of Gibb's early adult life and personal growth. A new part of Barry Gibb's life began soon after his divorce. Luck brought him to the woman who would become his lifelong partner while filming an episode of the BBC's famous music show, Top of the Pops, in London. It's a popular place for the biggest acts of the time. Barry met Linda Gray, a former Miss Edinburgh and a beautiful woman with a calm and helpful personality. The connection between the two was immediate, and their relationship grew quickly. On September 1st, 1970, which happened to Barry's 24th birthday, the couple got married in a private ceremony that started a deep and lasting bond. Unlike his first marriage, Barry and Linda's marriage turned out to be a stable and loving relationship that lasted for over 50 years. Together, Barry and Linda Gibb have raised a big family, becoming the proud parents of 5 children. One of them is their oldest son, Stephen Gibb, born in 1973. Followed his father by pursuing a career in music. Stephen is a talented guitar player and has played with different rock and metal bands, including Black Label Society. Barry's other children, Ashley, Travis, Michael, and Alexandra, have each made their own paths in life, but all share a strong family bond based on their parents' lasting marriage. Over the years, Barry has accepted his role as a father and grandfather with warmth and love, and today, he has 7 grandchildren who bring him continued happiness and purpose in his later years. Even with the demands of fame and a lifetime spent in the spotlight, Barry Gibb has always thought his family and personal relationships were very important. Besides his family responsibilities, Barry has kept strong ties to both his homeland and his adopted country. Originally from the Isle of Man, Andrest, in Manchester, England, Barry moved to the United States in 1974 when the Bee Gees were at the height of their fame, and has lived mostly there ever since. He and his wife, Linda, became American citizens in 2009, a big moment that showed their deep connection to their life in America. However, they chose to keep their British citizenship as well, accepting their 2 identities, honoring their heritage. Even though Gibb spends most of his time in thus, he still owns property in the UK, a country he still feels connected, visits often. One of the most interesting things about Gibb's life in the US was when he bought a famous property with deep musical story. In January 2006, Gibb and his wife bought the former home of country music legends Johnny Cash and June Carter, located in Hendersonville, Tennessee. Gibb had always admired Johnny Cash and imagined turning the historic property into a creative place and songwriting haven for artists, a place where musical legacies could be honored and new ones created. Unfortunately, something sad happened when the house caught fire on April 10, 2007 during renovation work. The fire, which was believed to have started by accident, completely destroyed the home and brought a heartbreaking end to Gibb's plans for their treat. It's not giving up. A new house was eventually built on the site, but magic and history of the original home could never be replaced. In 2014, Gibb and his family decided to sell the property, closing that chapter with grace and thankfulness for the memories it held. Through all of these personal events, marriages, parenthood, moving, and property ventures, Barry Gibb has stayed grounded in his values of love, loyalty, and creativity. His lasting friendship with Linda Gray is widely thought of as one of the most successful and steady in the entertainment industry, and his love for family continues to define his legacy as much as his musical achievements. Now in his late 70s, Barry Gibb, surviving member of the legendary Bee Gees, has begun to think more openly and honestly about the people, its moments, and relationships that helped shape his life and career. One of the most interesting and long wondered about parts of Gibb's past has been his private thoughts and meetings with members of the Beatles, especially the mysterious and famous John Lennon. For many years, fans and music historians have wondered about the real relationship between the Bee Gees and the Beatles. Even though both groups ruled the music world during the same times, their musical paths and public imagesem to exist in different worlds. But no, after years of respectful silence, Barry Gibb has finally chosen to speak honestly about his personal thoughts of John Lennon, a man who shaped the 1960s cultural revolution as much as anyone else in history. Barry said that his admiration for John Lennon began long before they ever met in person. As a teenager in the early 1960s, Barry, along with his younger brothers Robin and Morris, was deeply influenced by the raw energy and revolutionary sound of the Beatles. Gibb described hearing Please Please Me and She Loves You for the first time as nothing short of electrifying. It wasn't just the melodies or the harmonies that fascinated him. It was the attitude, the honesty, and the fearless innovation that Lennon had. Barry admitted that Lennon meant something more than just a rock star to him. It was a symbol of artistic freedom and social change. Even with their music album, the Bee Gees at first stayed somewhat in awe of the Beatles. Barry told about his nervousness during the first time he met Lennonite, a music industry party in London during the late 1960s. According to Gibb, Lennon walked into the room with a magnetic aura that made Devion pay attention. But what stood out to Barry wasn't just Lennon's presence. It was his sharp intelligence and surprisingly tender, charming humor. In private, Lennon could be warm and deeply thoughtful, even as his public image suggested one of sharp wit and rebellion. Barry remembered how Lennon complimented Bee Gees on their vocal blend, calling it beautifully strange, a comment that stayed with Barry for many years. Over the years, as the Bee Gees' fame went through the roof in the 1970s with the release of Saturday Night Fever and their disco dominance, Gibb said he often wondered what Lennon really thought of their change. While some critics said disco was just a commercial fad, Barry always thought that Lennon, a fellow boundary breaker, respected their ability to evolve and create new things. Gibb admitted he never got to ask Lennon directly, but in later interviews with Lennon's friends, tell him that John had privately admired Bee Gees' songwriting, especially their ability to write hits that connected so powerfully with audiences. But Gibb also admitted the complicated emotional relationship between the two groups. In public, John Lennon could be cutting, and he once made dismissive comments about the Bee Gees in a radio interview, which hurt Barry deeply. However, Barry now sees those remarks through the lens of time and maturity. He understands that Lennon was often fighting his own internal battle and used sarcasm and irony as protection. John had his demons, Barry said, and he thinks he sometimes pushed people away for they could get too close. Far from holding a grudge, Barry expressed deep sympathy for Lennon's struggles with fame, identity, and personal pain. Maybe the most touching thing Barry shared was about the moment he learned of John Lennon's tragic death in December 1980. Gibb remembered being in a studio in Miami when the news broke. It felt like the world just stopped, he said. It was as if a part of the sky had fallen. For Barry, Lennon's murder was not just the loss of a peer. It was the loss of a cultural giant whose voice had given hope, challenged authority, and brought meaning to an entire generation. Barry admitted he cried that night, grieving not only for Lennon's family, but for the millions of people who had looked to him as a voice of truth in a chaotic world. Now, many years later, Barry Gibb is no longer interested in hiding behind the guarded politeness that tend to find celebrity memories. At 78, with a lifetime of music and memories behind him, he speaks of Lennon not as a monolithic figure, but as a man, flawed, brilliant, brave, and heartbreakingly Han. I think John Lennon was one of the greatest minds of our time, Barry said. I'm grateful that even in small ways our lives cross paths, echoing us all to think more, to feel more, and to never stop asking questions, and maybe most touching, it's Barry's admission of how Lennon's brutal honesty inspired him to push the Bee Gees in new directions. After talking with John, I stopped trying to please everyone. I realized it. The music had to be real. Ted told me and something to me first. In finally telling the truth about John Lennon, Barry Gibb has offered not just an attribute, but a rare look into approbate respect. One artist honoring Ganathor, with honesty, vulnerability, and the kind of wisdom that only time can bring.